Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is January 16th, 2020. We've got a great call for you today. So we've got our updates across the patterns and practices programs. We've got two great demos. First from Federico, a site collection app catalog view web part, which is very cool. And then updates on the PnP modern web parts solutions from Frank and Brad. So excited to see those here at the call. So let's get through our updates and get to those demos. So people often ask, what's a great way to get more involved in the patterns and practices program or in these calls? And first off, I always recommend if you have something you'd like to demo, I know everybody out there is doing great work for your customers or your companies. We'd love to have you demo that stuff on these calls. So anything around SharePoint Framework and anything around using any of the @PnP offerings, be it the CLI, the controls, PnPjs, especially in combination with SPFx, make great demos. And we've had some really fantastic demos on these calls, and look forward to all the great ones in the future. And we'd love to have you and feature your demo on this call. So please reach out to myself or Vesa, and we'll get you scheduled. We are booked out, I think at this point, maybe even into March a little bit. So don't fear, though. We will get you on the schedule. We'd love to have your demo. So even if it's not on the very next call, we definitely will get you scheduled, and love to have those demos from everybody. We also encourage you to contribute on GitHub. And contribution takes a number of forms, so you can report issues to us. We don't love that there are issues, but we love to get them reported so that we can fix them, address them. Issues can be questions, get your questions answered. Could be issues you found a bug, could be ideas for enhancing any of our offerings. So this is true across any of the @PnP suite of things. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can make those better. We, of course, across all our things, absolutely accept and encourage pull requests. So if you have some time and want to maybe fix a bug or maybe add a new feature or a new method or something like that, absolutely encourage that. Love to have that, and it really helps grow things faster and get the community involvement to help build things up, as opposed to waiting till someone on the core team might have the time to address a certain thing. If you have some time and are willing to submit a pull request, we absolutely love to have those, encourage those, and certainly accept those. And then finally, if you have a few moments and you happen to look through the issues list and maybe you see somebody has a question or isn't sure how to get started on something, and you happen to know the answer to that, that's a great place to dive in, help them out with that question. It really kind of again, builds on that community, gets them answers a little bit faster, and then also helps you share your knowledge and encourages other people to get involved as well. So great ways to contribute. Encourage all of you, if you're interested, please contribute. If you're unsure on how to get started with contributing, we do have the AKMS Sharing is Caring program to help you get started, not just with GitHub, but also with how to just sort of get involved contributing, what are kind of the steps to take, and those sort of things. So it's a great resource. Definitely encourage you to check that out if you're interested in getting involved or contributing or helping out, but you're just kind of not sure maybe where to get started. Definitely check that program out. Really excited to see that getting started, and they've already had, I think, 1 or 2 sessions there. So really great stuff, and look forward to even more coming out of that in the coming year. And then finally, always encourage everybody to give us feedback on what we're doing. So how are these calls? How's our documentation? Where can we help? Of course, specific feedback is great. Saying the documentation could be better is true, but that's kind of a big problem to solve. So if there's a specific article or a specific part of these calls, something that we could be doing a little bit better, certainly love to hear that, and love to try and make all of our work as good as it can be. And then finally, of course, positive feedback is okay too. If you like something we're doing, it's great to tell us that as well. And that way we can, maybe do a little bit more of that, or kind of bring that to the fore a little bit. So encourage all kinds of feedback, including positive feedback. So we got some links here before we get to the updates on the program stuff. SharePoint Dev Docs, SPDev-Docs will take you to the all-up SharePoint developer documentation. That documentation is really includes all of the SharePoint developer documentation now. So whether you're getting started on SharePoint Framework, whether you are doing managed code development, or whether you're doing app development, that is going to be where you can find documentation for all of those resources. So definitely check that out. SPDev-videos is the PnP YouTube channel. So it's got all of the recordings of, for example, this call, our other special interest group call, our monthly calls, as well as various series of videos on specific topics. So stuff like provisioning, stuff like getting started with the CLI, and we're working on getting some videos out there for PnPjs on getting started with V2. So those will be coming up very shortly. I've seen the first one of that is really great, and we'll get the second one out shortly as well. Well, the first one's not quite out yet. We're gonna get all that out. We'll talk about that in a second. And then SPDev-issues, that link takes you to the SharePoint dev issues list. That's the issues list. Great place to report anything around SharePoint Framework or modern SharePoint. So that's a link issues list monitored by the product group. So that is essentially an official feedback forum. And it's a great place if you find an issue with SPFx, if you find an issue with sort of modern page experience, stuff like that, it's a great place to report it. And so it can be tracked and publicly visible on the progress there. Finally, two great open source organizations, github.com/SharePoint and the github.com/PnP. So /SharePoint is the official Microsoft SharePoint organization. That's where you'll find things like that SharePoint dev issues list and a lot of other sort of more official resources. And then as well, github.com/PnP is our patterns and practices organization. So not an official Microsoft organization, but the organization where we're housing a lot of our modern patterns and practices solutions. So you can find those there. And you can also, of course, find a couple of the older like sites core and stuff like that under the SharePoint org for PnP. So moving into updates from engineering. Vason, you want to take it away?
Yep. Thank you. Let's go to the first slide. Just a reminder first, because we're promoting this now heavily in here and there, but we're getting a lot of good feedback around this one as well. Please remember to use the lookbook.microsoft.com, because this is the easiest way to get you the ready-to-go demos around how to use and how to build modern SharePoint experiences. So there's 12 different or 15 different templates, and you can select from them. You can surface those in Teams. You can do a lot of other things with those templates as well. And those templates are actually exactly the designs which we used in Ignite keynote, so that should be quite exciting for you. And they're also good kind of hosting templates when you're building your own SharePoint Framework extensibility. We have done a significant improvements there pretty recently. It's much more reliable now. There was some exception issues related here and there, and it should be much more reliable if you're using the service right now. The next slide is more around the SharePoint Framework usage, just to show you that we're back in track on the usage. So that's kind of showing you the trends from early 2008 until 2020 on the adoption of SharePoint Framework day-to-day basis worldwide in SharePoint Online. So we can actually use or show the usage and growth. As expected, and due to the holiday season, there's always a drop during end of December, but then it gets back on the growth track in January. Now, if you think about what has happened within the last 2 weeks, obviously the big thing last week Tuesday, so since the last bi-weekly special interest group, is the fact that the version 1.10 is now out, and you can build. There's an improved Microsoft Teams development support, so you can create personal app using SharePoint Framework but targeting Teams, and then you can actually create also Outlook Web Access add-ins using the SharePoint Framework. And we are actually in progress of doing more and more together with all of these engineering organizations. So we are planning updated guidance on Team side of the house and kind of a merged messaging, a merged community engagement together with Teams and dev side. So making sure that people understand to take advantage of this joined and shared development experience across the both sides. Just a word about point maybe there as well. And this the fact that you're using SharePoint Framework to implement potentially Office add-ins or Teams tabs doesn't mean that the old models in Teams or in the Office add-ins are not going to go away. That's not true. So the model where you want to surface an existing website in Teams as a tab or as an Office add-in, that is absolutely still supported, but with SharePoint Framework, and which will be renamed to something else sooner or later, this is much more easier, and you can really easily build enterprise applications using this model. So with 1.11, 1.12, the Office add-in side will go to GA, and then you can target all of the other Office clients as well. Now that 1.10 is out, we haven't actually decided what's in the 1.11. Most likely there will be 1.10.1 relatively soon. Nothing too dramatical. There's certain things which we need to get fixed, not a critical things, but we need to make sure that even in edge scenarios, if you choose certain options, those are working super reliably. Maybe the development experience has certain things which we need to address. So nothing critical, but still there will be 1.10.1 quite soon. And then what will be in 1.11 has not yet been decided, but we're looking into doing that before SPC and then another release in SPC. And during the spring, one of the key points for us is really to address the store scenarios, so making sure that you're able to target app stores for SharePoint Framework-driven applications. We at the same time build a unified Microsoft 365 toolchain and workloads. So basically, in future, you're no longer just creating SharePoint Framework components as a web port. You're creating something else whenever somebody makes a decision around what we're going to call that. Native support for fluid framework implants, faster inner dev loop, and more extensions means that there will be navigation extensions, overriding extensions, and all of those things, hopefully by SPC already available, maybe in preview earlier than that. But that's a quick update from my side, so nothing too dramatical on this side, but progress. And let's go to the rabbits, right, Patrick?
Let's go to the rabbits.
Rabbit is the logo for whatever reason of the PnPjs, right? And the
not whatever reason, it's because I own rabbits.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not completely random. So PnPjs updates v2. So the release delayed. We had one scheduled for last Friday. That's been delayed slightly due just to stuff in life. Me being really busy with my real job, and also some illness stuff catching up with me. So that is going to go out hopefully maybe later today or tomorrow for the V2 release. I'm working on getting caught up there. Fixed some Node.js import issues, fixed some issues that came into the list, as well as cleaned up some stuff from the launch. There's always an initial, cruft. It's a word, look it up. Just some cleanup stuff that was left over from that, and then just got a ton of documentation updates from Julie, who helpfully updated the docs to make it more clear, and also fixed a ton of my terrible typos. So thank you, Julie, for doing that, to taking the time to do that. I also want to thank everybody that's reported issues since the 2.0 launch. Appreciate that. With every launch, there's always a couple little things we'll slide through. So appreciate getting those early issues back and able to fix those for the 2.01 release that will come out, like I said, maybe later today or definitely by tomorrow. Wanted to mention as well, the polyfill package has been updated. That's only required if you're using IE 11, but did fix two issues folks were having. The first was a Stack Overflow issue, specifically when working with SPFx. So that was just a conflict between the polyfills that SPFx uses and that we were providing. So fix that. And then as well, we hadn't provided a polyfill for symbol and somehow didn't catch that previously. So got those fixed, and the new update is out, or the package is published and out for the polyfill. That is out and available now. So if you've had trouble, please grab that, and should be good to go. But if you continue to have trouble, of course, let us know. And wanted to mention again, David's been working on some great videos. Look forward to getting those out for you very shortly. We'll get those out alongside the PnPjs 2.01 release. So that will probably all kind of land Monday is my current mental plan there. PnP.github.io/PnPjs for all the documentation. Hashtag PnPjs on Twitter. You can follow me at Mediocre Bowler on Twitter, and would love to hear from you if you've got ideas around PnPjs, or as well, you can follow me for updates around PnPjs. And I don't really tweet a lot of other stuff, so it'll just be PnPjs stuff. Moving on, the Office 365 CLI, a great cross-platform CLI tool to allow you to manage your SharePoint and Office 365 tenants. Support for upgrade. So this new version added support for upgrading SharePoint projects to the new SPFx version 1.10. 6 new commands for reports on OneDrive and SharePoint usage, and as well improved how you work with list items. In progress work, more commands for Yammer, Teams, Power Automate, Power Apps, and SharePoint. So that's, again, great work driven by the community. So I'd love to see all the contributions going into the CLI and the great work going on by all those folks. And you can always install the beta versions using npm install-g at pnp/office365-CLI at next. Will get you whatever the current latest beta is there. Hashtag Office365 CLI on Twitter, gitter.im/Office365-CLI for Gitter chat, and then docs there, aka MSO365 CLI. So it's been really fantastic to see the growth of this tool over the year or years. Has it been years now that this has been out? But really cool tool and really amazing to see the amount of community involvement in building out the CLI. So that's very exciting to see, and really excited to see the continued growth of this. It just makes it an even more valuable tool in your developer toolbox. So definitely check that out and encourage you, of course, on any of our projects, but the CLI is a great place to get started, perhaps with your first contribution, because each command is sort of its own atomic thing. So it's easy to get involved there in the CLI and make a real impact very quickly. Reusable controls. So we have some React Controls 1.17.0 beta is out. And there's a big push on localization for these controls. So supporting localization for all of the SharePoint languages, doing auto translation via cognitive services. Very exciting new development, very cool thing to see in there. I know SharePoint or PnP, we haven't always been the best at language support, localization support. So it's really exciting to see this support get into the controls. They're very widely used, and that's a great new feature. Of course, if you don't like the automatic translation, those can be updated to be better, from native speakers and so forth. As well, new controls or updates to existing controls. So taxonomy picker, able to hide deprecated and available for tagging terms. And then lots of other fixes and improvements are going into the React controls right now. Of course, thanks again as well to all the contributors here. And for more information, the first link there is to the property controls. That's a set of controls, set of React controls designed to be used within the property pane of your web part. So you can edit your web parts properties and give a very nice out-of-the-box looking experience to your users. Everything's styled with the Office UI fabric and gives you a lot of great capabilities and features ready to go. So you don't have to redevelop them for every project or every customer. Great proven community developed controls there for the edit pane. And the second link there takes you to the React controls, of which the 1.17 beta is out. And the controls are designed to be used more in the body of your web parts, or of course, application customizers as well. And that is a great way to, again, bring a real out-of-the-box feel and look to your web parts, but without having to do any of that development work yourself. So building on this community work to enhance your projects and give them a great visual appeal right out of the box. Last but not least, our Community Yeoman Generator, another great addition to your SharePoint development toolbox. This builds on top of the quote-unquote real SPFx generator, and so everything you get under the hood is a real SPFx project with all the same Microsoft dependencies, but it gives you a lot more setup options in terms of adding additional libraries, such as Vue, handlebars, so forth, to your projects. as well as some of the PnP libraries. So PnPjs or the controls, you can add all that stuff directly into your projects and gives you a more enhanced setup experience so that you could have a lot of the extra stuff you used to have to add kind of after the fact into your projects right from the get-go. So it's really great to see that. Encourage folks to use that. It's a great tool, especially in larger organizations, to have sort of a standard setup for all your project types. You can include a lot of extra stuff, a lot of extra configuration, while still getting, like I said, a quote-unquote real SPFx project with all the same dependencies. So excited to see this is another tool that's continued to develop greatly since it was first launched. A lot of community involvement there, so thank you to everybody. Some stuff that's happening is working on some enhanced build pipelines, as well as getting Lodash integrated for smaller builds and bundles. So excited to see that stuff come to fruition, and that hopefully will be released very soon. Installing the latest version via npm install-g at pnp/generator-spfx. Documentation, AKMS/PnP Generator. Somebody's pasted that link there in the chat as well. Thank you, Carl. And chat on Gitter, gitter.im/generator, SPFx/generator will get you to chat about if you have questions around the generator and how to get involved there. So with that, I believe we are ready for our demos. So Federico.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Federico Porceddu. Nice to meet you all. I'm a senior developer from Avan in Italy. Actually, I'm based in Sardinia, in Cagliari, at the Avan Advanced Technology Center. And here you can find my contacts. Today, I show you an SPFx web port allows you to list all SIG collection app catalogs and all app installed with some useful metadata. And let's see together general needs for this sample. First of all, my goal was to find a way to monitor SPFx solution installed on local, so SIG collection app catalog. Why? Because that's where it's easy, because from a tenant administrator point of view, there is no way at the moment to check without using scripts or code which sites currently use an app catalog and a local app catalog, and how many solutions are installed on which version, and etc. So the desired result was to help developers and tenant administrator to don't lose sight of how many SIG collection app catalog have been created and in which site. Even if only a SharePoint administrator can create a SIG collection app catalog, it could be easy to lose sight of this information. Let's continue with a short introduction, a technical background, because as you almost certainly know, there are two types of app catalogs on which you can deploy a solution SPFx, SharePoint in. A global one at a tenant level, where the solution installed here can potentially be available on all sites, so package versions are centralized. And about SIG collection app catalog local to the SIG collection, they introduce a specific isolation level for packages. So version could be specific to each site, but pay attention because only user like SharePoint administrator can create a SIG collection app catalog. By the way, there is the documentation from the official repository docs.microsoft.com. You can find all information and difference between the two app catalogs. About fundamentals, I took inspiration from a post by David Romano, which I thank again. And you can find the link on this post on my blog. David, in his post, talk about how to check all SharePoint SIG collection with app catalog active. This is because by default, SharePoint SIG collection app catalog is not enabled. So thanks to this post, I discovered there is a needle list to the tenant app catalog, and where you can find all the set collection app catalog enable and relative URL. So inside you can find listed all set collection app catalog URL, and the app catalog is just a custom list under the so we can perform action on this list, and this is the URL, so you can access to this list. By the solution key point, I wanted to take advantage of this contribution to gain experience on PnP SPFx Controls React. As you know, a reusable React control for a SharePoint Framework solution. In a particular way, I use web title and list view that is really powerful. In order to get information related to the app installed on the various catalog, I use the ALM SharePoint Online REST API. Allows you to manage app installation both in the tenant app catalog and individual site app catalogs. Fortunately, there is a PnP SP app catalog from PnPjs, so we can access to the set collection app catalog and get all apps easily. And this is awesome, really awesome. Remember, all these action are bound by permission, action around ALM. So it's likely most user will not have the rights to perform this ALM action. I want to like to show you a detail of one of the call to the native API like this. There is this REST API, set collection is a API web, set collection app catalog, available apps, and ALM API calls return all apps, and this snippet is represent a single installed app. And here you can find really useful metadata like the title, if it's enabled or if it's a client solution, the salivation, and the ID of the app, and etc. So in order to use ALM is really awesome, this API, and use with PnPjs, PnP in general is really awesome. We can proceed with demo time, so I can switch to my machine. First of all, I want to show you, this is the app catalog, okay? And so if you access to this list, this is the list of all sites in my tenant where the local app catalog is enabled. So a really simple list. And we can see the web part in action, and the web part, here we are. Okay, so I decided to show about 4 or 5 columns, like the set collection is a link, and the title. I already implement a custom render with the list view SPFx control React in order to render a different color, for instance, if there are no apps available for inside. And you can find app catalog if it is deployed, and the version. Okay, I just used the set the filter in. It's a really easy, and there's a out of the box feature from this control, so you can filter for all enable and deployed, for instance, apps for every site. We can see already the code, so here we are. So this is the web part, and really easy and simple. I include controls, so I can edit my web part title, and list view. There is the bind from this state property, site app catalog, which is populated in the component didmount event from React. So in this event, I call an internal helper get set collection catalog list and set the state. about this method, okay, I start to retrieve all. First of all, the tenant app catalog. The app catalog is just a web object, and get all the access to the hidden list, say collection app catalogs. So in this property, I have all the list of all URL, and start a map cycle, and start to query for each get collection app catalog that return all the instance of the app catalog local, and obviously all the apps. There is a other utility method, and this is just for map my my property, because of the object use the same metadata they showed before in the native API. So there is, for instance, version, if it is deployed, and there is a client solution, etc. Back to the web part, I want to show you the custom render, for instance, for if it is deployed or not. It's really easy, and so you can set a style or a color, or a value to your list view row and list view cell. I think there is nothing more to show you, I think. And no, this is the last slide. And perfect. So this is all from my side. Thank you, Patrick, and thanks you all for your attention.
Great, thank you very much. That was another great demo. Very much appreciate it. And want to now turn to Frank and Brad. I'm not sure which of you is going to share your screens.
Yep, I will start. Hi, everyone. My name is Frank Cornu. I'm a 55 developer and the original author of the PnP model solution, and I'm based in Montreal, Canada. So today I will show you some new features released in the December version of this web part of this solution. So here is I have a page, a SharePoint page here. I think you already know the solution, the PnP model search web part. So basically, what you have to know with this web part, I won't go deep into the configuration, but what you have to know with the search web part, which is the main web part of this solution, you can customize the UI with different options, meaning you can just adapt the UI and the result display according to your requirements. So basically, we have multiple scenarios supported in, to customize the UI. The first one, I would say, would be the light one in terms of customization. So you can just configure your own properties on search managed properties, edit placeholders, the queries, and so on. This is the basic scenario, okay? But we have also like advanced scenario. So in these scenarios, you can completely override the result display. So for this, there is an existing solution that you can use to completely override this UI. So the first one is use the search custom renderer project. This is a project that was made 1 year ago, I guess, by Taral. So with this project, you just have total control over the UI, and you can use a React component to customize the result display. By the way, I forgot to mention, but there is a new repo for the PnP model search web part. So this is not hosted in the SPDev solution repository anymore. So if you have issues or anything else, just go to the new repo Microsoft Search /PnP model search, and you can start from there and get the latest release from there. There is also a nice documentation as well, so you can just explore the documentation, and yeah, much more readable. Okay, so for the custom renderer, you can use this to customize the whole display. And the new feature I will show you is another way to, let's say, customize more granular, which is the creation of custom web components. Web components, you may have noticed some default layouts provided with this web parts already use this technique, the web component. This is the case for the details list and the ties layouts. So if I click on the details list, for instance, and I will inspect the underlying handlebar template, you will see something like this, PnP detail list, and so on and so on. So these are web components wrapping React components. So this way you have, let's say, the best of both worlds in terms of UI customization. You can use React components, so create dynamic behaviors, and you can also benefit from the handlebars context, and you can still use CSS and HTML in your custom templates. So the new feature is basically now you have the ability to create your own components. So how you can do this? In the PnP Modern Search web part, PnP Modern Search solution, sorry, you have a new project called Search Extensibility Library. So if you inspect the code of this project, so this is basically a SPFx library component project type. So this is not a web part, not an extension, but a library component. Few things you have to know for this project. The first thing is to get it work with the search result web part, you have to make sure the ID in the manifest is this ID. This is the only way to, let's say, load the library dynamically from the search result web part. So you have to keep this ID for now. I don't know another way to load this library. So first rule, keep this ID. Then you have a main file here. So this is a demo project. So it provides some interfaces, TypeScript interfaces that you can use to create your own and declare your own components, web components. So all you have to do is create friendly name for your components. So let's say I will use my custom components and a web component class that will be the logic of your components. So in this demo, I created a very basic components. So as you can see, there are some props here and there is the logic. So in this component, I can do pretty much anything I want. So in this example, I took, for example, the panel component from the Office UI Fabric library, but you can use your own components. It doesn't really matter. Another rule to get it worked in your templates, as you can see, there are some props here, and the usage of the components will be like this. So as you can see, my custom components, I can use it like this in my my templates. The way HTML attributes are translated into React props, you have to follow this pattern. So as you can see, my string param is translated in my string param here. So you have to use in your props the camel case syntax to get it work. So you have an example here. My string param is translated to my string param in props, and this is the same for object param. Also for complex types, let's say you have to pass an object from the handlebars context to your web components. All you have to do for objects is just to stringify the object and get the version, the parse version into your component. So this is the way you can pass complex objects and properties. So then once you created your components, what you have to do to let's say to use it in your search result web part is pretty easy. So I will just go back here. As you can see in my template, I've declared my custom component. Okay, if I save, ooh, nice. Okay, my component isn't here right now. The thing is, if I have to display this component, the thing I have to do is to bundle my solution. So just go to your project, search extensible library, gun bundle ship, Anyway, you know the process. I won't go deep there, but bundle, then package. You have a beautiful package as the output. Go to your app catalog. It can be the site collection app catalog or the global app catalog, and just upload your package. Here, so the PnP Search Extensibility Library demo. Just make this solution available to all sites. And if I go there, press F-file, ta-da, my component is here. So as you can see, this is my React components. So it uses the panel from the Office UI Fabric library, and I can introduce dynamic behaviors and so on. And I can benefit from the handlebars context, so the search results, properties, item properties, and so on. So I think this is the most flexible way to customize the UI, because you have the handlebar context, you have the ability to create your own components, your own granular components. So you can use them in, let's say, in the global template. So let's say here in the template, the whole template, or inside, let's say, for the manage for the detail list layout, you can also use them inside, for instance, column. So I can just write my custom components, and inject my properties. It will be the same. So a very flexible way to customize your results. Also, regarding the code, you can, of course, use React components and your own React components, but you can also benefit from the context of the web part. So in the base component class that the library provides, you can still use the web part context. Yep. Oh, no, sorry, not there. Not there. This is much better. So you have this property already provided. So it means you can, for instance, call your own web services and so on, blah, blah, blah. You can do whatever you want here. So the only thing you have to do is just to follow the structure. There is a built-in method that resolves attributes from HTML attributes to React props using the camel case syntax. And then you can inject your props into your components. And that's pretty it. Keep the same ID, implement the base class, upload to your app catalog, and here you go. You can just implement your web components. I think, so this is the new feature for the already available in the December release. And there will be also a super cool feature made by Brad, leveraging also the extensibility library. So maybe I will let you present the super cool feature you've made using the extensibility library. So if you can share your screen, I'm done for my demos. So Brad.
All right, thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brad Schlintz. I work within Microsoft Services as a Premier Field Engineer, and my focus is SharePoint and Office 365 development. You can find me on GitHub and Twitter at bschlintz, or my blog at crankcode.com. So today I'm going to demonstrate the custom query suggestions functionality that was recently added to the PnP Modern Search web part. This capability allows an organization to use the PnP search web parts that Frank showed, but then add their own rich query suggestions that may come from either a SharePoint list, Microsoft Graph, or another system. So this functionality leverages the same extensibility library that Frank showed earlier, but by adding an additional function called get custom suggestion providers, which returns one or more suggestion providers. So a provider may work in sort of one or two ways. The first way is when you can offer 0 query suggestions. So these show when you place the cursor into the search box, but the user hasn't yet typed anything. So this might be useful for showing suggestions relevant to the current user, such as their recently modified files, or provide quick access to a frequently visited link such as the Patterns and Practices site. So a suggestion can kind of have a few different components here. So it can be composed of an icon that you can specify. You can also specify the display text, as well as description text, and a suggestion group. So this is just sort of arbitrary group text. And so if you have multiple suggestions that get returned and you use the same group, they sort of all get merged together when they actually render in the browser here. And then the last thing is, if you add a target URL, you'll also see this little icon here. When the URL is specified, the suggestion actually becomes a link. And so when I would go ahead and click on this, it would actually launch this in a new tab. So the other type of suggestion would be the type ahead, so more of the traditional sense, right? So if you type, in this case, SPFx, we can see we have a few different suggestions returned. The first two are from our custom suggestion provider, so the same as that zero query suggestion. And the second set is actually coming from SharePoint, and this is calling the built-in REST API. And so you can select a suggestion by either clicking on them with your mouse, or you can use your keyboard, the up and down arrows, to kind of cycle through the suggestions. Once you have a suggestion that you want to see, you can either just press enter or click on it. So I'll just press enter here. And so you can see we're actually doing a search for that now. So how is this all working? One thing I do want to show, though, before we jump into the code, is you can actually toggle each suggestion provider on or off. So if we go to edit the page, and then go to our search box here and hit edit, when you have an extensibility library deployed, and that extensibility library returns one or more custom suggestion providers, then you will see this additional button show up here. And so this allows you to see all of the suggestion providers that are available to the search box. The very first one here is the one that's built into the PnP search web parts. So this is really just the one that calls the SharePoint suggestions REST API. The second one is the custom one that we created in our extensibility library. And so with each of these, you can toggle them on or off. And so you can really have a lot of flexibility in terms of which providers are enabled. All right, so let's switch over and take a look at some code. So the first file that we're going to take a look at here is the company library component. So this is the entry point for where you will register both your custom web components that Frank demoed just a little bit ago, as well as the custom suggestion providers. So for each suggestion provider, you can provide a name, which is used internally to track whether or not a particular provider is enabled or not. So this is saved in the web part settings. Also a display name that you'll see in that property configuration pane, as well as the description. And then lastly, you'll provide the class. And so this is the actual class that implements the provider's functionality. So let's jump to the class. Within here, there's two getter methods or getter properties that we want to pay attention to first. So the first one here is suggestions enabled? So if this property returns true, then you must also implement the get suggestions method. And so this is the traditional suggestions as you type in the search box. And as you type, this method will get called for every time. And you also get the query text that the user is typing in. And so for this example, we're just calling in our get sample suggestions. So down here, we can actually see we have a few hard-coded samples in here for SPFx training and SPFx documentation. And then down here at the bottom, we're actually just filtering that list of sample suggestions by the query text that the user's typed in. The second type of suggestion is a zero-term suggestion. So this is the zero-term suggestions enabled property. If you return true from this getter, then you must also implement the get zero-term suggestions method down here. And so you notice this is just returning an array of suggestions that we have defined on our class. So this is a good time to introduce the onInit method. So onInit is actually called, it can be an asynchronous method. So this would allow you to call, let's say, into your own custom API or some service to get a list of zero-term suggestions that you can then display whenever you need to when the provider gets called. And so here we just have one that's hard-coded. But here you can see the different properties that are available on a particular suggestion. So here you can see the display text, the group name, the icon, description, as well as the hover text. So as you hover over the suggestion in the browser, this will show up as a tooltip, and then as well as an optional URL. So if you don't specify a target URL, then when you click on it or select it, you'll search for the display text that's specified up here. If you do have a target URL, then that's when the suggestion does become a link. The other property I want to call attention to is the onSuggestionSelected method. This allows you to pass in essentially a callback. So whenever this suggestion gets selected, you can fire some logic here, right? So I'm just logging it to the console, but you can think of some scenarios where you might use this to track analytics or other things, right? So that's kind of one additional piece there that we didn't show. That really is kind of it for the suggestions. If we kind of jump back to the browser here, you can kind of see there's a couple different ways that this will work. I just want to show one more thing. So we saw, like, if you search for like SPFx, right? If I start completing this out and start typing training, you can actually see it does filter it down. So this is all happening inside of that suggestion provider code, that filtering logic. And that concludes my demo. Are there any questions on any of the PnP modern search stuff that either Frank did or I did here?
Any questions? By the way, Brad, this is just awesome.
This was a fun contribution to work on. This was lots of nuances here. One other thing.
Yeah, PR are accepted in this repo. So if you want to add a cool feature like this, you can submit your pull request.
Maybe one thing to note, whenever we're in progress of pushing out the Microsoft Search text box experience, which is the one which is in a suite navigation. So for some tenants, it was actually in 10%, and I think it's currently in hold. We're fixing something, and it's going to get started rolling out quite soon as well, or more and more. And when that comes out, then that's actually enabling customers to define a custom search results page in their site collection level. And in that custom search result page, you can then take advantage of the PnP search web part. So you're able to actually build a fully polished and an awesome modern SharePoint search experience, which the Microsoft Search is kind of complying as well. So whenever somebody is actually applying a search query in the suite navigation, that query will be redirected to the custom search query results page. And then over there, you can absolutely build your own search results web parts, but I think we have a nice set of community open source web parts here from Frank and Brad, and Mikael Svensson has been involved, and Taralk has been involved, and many others have been involved on building this together. Right now, the timeline for getting that suite navigation and the custom results web page setting out would be shaking my hand. I would say not within maybe upcoming days, but within upcoming weeks. Definitely not months. So it's coming, and you can see then more wider communications when that's out. Cute. I think that's it then. We have 5 minutes for the Q&A if there's any other things to talk about. Questions. And there was a chat for those who can see the chat. We understand that some of you cannot see the chat. There's apparently some sort of Microsoft Teams weirdness related on how do you access these calls, and you will get the chat and other times you don't. There was a one question which I put in the chat window related on app catalog, and would there be a use case and demand for a hub site app catalog? So we do have a site collection app catalog, a tenant levels app catalog, and then we are in planning kind of have a hub site app catalogs, and that would mean that any associated site would see then those solutions which would be in a hub site app catalog available. And there was already a lot of feedback around that one, that definitely a suitable case. But and we are more than interested on any other feedback on that one. Any update when the modern term store manager will become available? We talked about that one in the monthly community call on Tuesday, because that's part of the Project Cortex team ownership. And right now the plan is that a lot of this stuff is getting out during this half of the year, which means by SPC, and SPC is in the end of May. So sooner or later, you will see some more wider communications on that. Right now, it's not going to happen within a matter of days. That's for sure. What's the roadmap for SharePoint user profile versus Del Craft? I still have clients who want to display birthdays and work anniversaries. I think the longer-term roadmap is slightly more complicated. I think we're still in the kind of this, I wouldn't say limbo. We're in the middle of making a long-term commitments and communications on what's going to happen, because like with any other things in Office 365 or Microsoft 365, we want to surface or we want to elevate functionalities like taxonomy, not to be only specific on SharePoint. Right now, the Delve profiles and the user profile profiles are SharePoint specific, but we actually want to have Microsoft 365 or Office 365 specific profile. And whenever we will have additional details on that one, and those will be then covered in upcoming community calls or in the tech community blog posts. But I can't go to exact details when and where, but something is going to happen on that area sooner or later. It's pretty evident. The user profile is quite old for now. My German is horrible. I can't. I read German for 1.5 years, so I can't actually read that, unfortunately. That seems to be German, maybe. Or Dutch, yeah. I think we're running out of time anyway. So if there's any immediate follow-ups, please use the chat window. We can follow up on this some things. But right now, Patrick, do you want to do the closing, or should I? You'll do it. I'll do it. You'll do it. I'll do it. You'll do it. I'll do it.
I don't care. You can do it.
Should we do it together?
No.
So the next community call for SharePoint Framework PnPjs is on January 13th, and the next one, the following community call is on the week from now on Thursday, and January 23rd. And that's in there. We're going to have Teams integration, provisioning. We actually already have an agenda for that one. Most likely, Chris Kent is back with his warrior horses, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't want to miss the call. For those who have seen it, know exactly what I mean with warrior horses. But that's in the next Thursday, and from 2 weeks from now, a new SharePoint Framework community call. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for being active on the community chats, and let's stay in touch. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thank you.